Alright, a brand new week calls for a brand new Pandas tutorial. If you're new to this channel, welcome. My name is Jason. This week is week 4 of the Pandas Zero to Hero video series, a video series where I teach you simple, effective, and beginner-friendly ways of using Pandas. So in last week's tutorial, we learned how to apply functions to our data frame. This week, we're going to cover the concept of grouping and sorting. So what is grouping and sorting? By grouping our data, we're essentially segmenting our data into smaller subcomponents, and it's a really powerful way to not only break down a large complex problem, but more importantly, it allows us to carefully observe the trends and patterns that are happening within those smaller segments. It's an extremely important skill to develop when you're doing data analysis, and we see this technique frequently being used in a variety of different contexts, whether you work in consulting, in research, and most definitely we see this being used in data science. There's no one right way of segmenting your data, so I highly encourage you to use your creativity as well as going onto the internet and have a look at other people's projects to draw some inspiration on how you can segment your data. In this week's tutorial, we're going to learn exactly how we can use pandas to group as well as sort our data. I know we've been using the Titanic dataset a lot in the previous tutorials, so this week I thought we'll use a different dataset. The dataset that we're going to use in this tutorial is US gun violence data. I've included a link on my notebook which will bring you to the Kaggle website, and all you need to do is just hit download, and once you've downloaded the dataset, import it into Jupyter Notebook. Alright, so let's begin this week's tutorial. First of all, we're going to import pandas as usual, and next what we're going to do is just import the dataset. So our data frame looks something like this. So every row corresponds to a single gun violence incident, and across the columns we have the date in which the case occurred, the state, the city, address, number of killed, number of injured, and so on. It's a relatively big data frame with 29 columns. We're not going to use all of them in our tutorial. So what I'm going to do next is do some preparation to get rid of the columns that we don't need, as well as add some new additional columns. If you're not interested in this part, feel free to skip ahead to the actual tutorial. But if you are, what I've done here essentially is just remove the columns starting from incident URL onwards. And then I also went on ahead to drop the columns incident ID, city or county, as well as the address column. So it'll look something like this. And then using the date column, so this one, as well as number of killed, number of injured columns, I've come up with some new additional features. I broke the date column down further into year, month, day, and day of week. And I've summed up number of killed and number of injured as the total victim column. And what I've done next is use the map function that we've learned from last week to just replace the numeric values to text, where 0 is Monday, 1 is Tuesday, 2 is Wednesday, and so on. And what I've done here is check for null values just to make sure there's no missing data. Alright, so the most important function that we need to know to group our data in Pandas is using the group by function. First of all, let's recall the value counts function that we've learned from last week. So if we apply the value counts function to the day of week column, Pandas should return the number of values that correspond to each of the day of week. So Sunday, as we can see here, there's 37,000 cases. Saturday, there's 36,000, and so on. We can accomplish this using the group by function. First, we need to specify the features that we want to group the data by. So in this case, we want to group the data by day of week. So we want to group it by Monday, Tuesday, and so on. And we're also going to tell Pandas, once we've grouped our data, what exactly are we trying to accomplish. So in this case, I'm going to count the total victim column. Other than the count function, we can also use other functions that we've learned from last week, like max, min. We can figure out the average using the mean, and so on. So in this next example, we're going to look at how we can use the sum function. Suppose we want to figure out how many total victims are there by state. We need to first group our data by state. We're going to tell Pandas to sum up the total victim column. So as you can see here, our data has been categorized by state, and to the right of that, we have the total number of victims. So the example that we just saw was only using one function, which was the sum function. But what we can actually do is compute a bunch of different functions simultaneously. And the way we do that is using the AGG function, which stands for aggregate. So first of all, we're going to group our data by month. And we want 3 pieces of information here. First is the average, followed by minimum value, as well as the maximum value. And we're going to apply that to the total victim column. And so as we can see here, our data has been grouped by month. So going from January all the way down to December. And across the columns, we have min, which is the first thing that we wanted to do, followed by min and max. So as you can see here, this is just an elaboration of what we have here on top. Here we only have one column, which is just the sum. By using the aggregate function, we can apply more functions simultaneously. All right, so next we're gonna move on to sort. So suppose you have grouped your data and you want to sort them in a particular order, whether that is from highest to lowest or lowest to highest. This is where the sort values function comes in. Suppose we would like to compute the total number of victims in each state, going from highest to lowest. This first part here should be very similar. So we're gonna first group our data by state, and then we're gonna sum up the total victim according to each state. And to sort our data going from highest to lowest, we have to use the sort values function. And within the sort values function, we have an argument called ascending. And if we want to go from highest to lowest, we have to set that to false. So as we can see here, Illinois has the highest total number of victims, followed by California, Texas, and so on. Suppose we want to figure out the number of gun violence cases in each month, and suppose we want to sort them going from lowest to highest. First, we need to group by month because we want our data in months. And then we're going to apply the count function to the total victim column. And we're going to use the sort values function. And because we want our data going from lowest to highest, we have to set that to true. All right, so as you can see here, November has the lowest, followed by December, April, and so on. All right, and that brings us to the end of this week's tutorial. I hope you gained something out of that. If you enjoyed it, please drop a like on my video and subscribe to my channel because very soon, once I'm done with my exams, I'll start posting a full data science project. With that being said, take care, keep learning, and I'll see you in my next tutorial. Bye.
1, 2, 3, 4. Started off right, I can see it in your eyes, and I know that you want it. What's been on your mind? There's no reason we should hide. Tell me something I ain't heard before.